Shalom and welcome, all my brothers and sisters. How does Karaism and Rabbinical Judaism differ? I'm going to answer a few questions, just a few, a handful. I'm going to do several videos answering questions that is often asked and often wondered about. Let's begin. In discussing the issue with students of the Talmud, one will invariably encounter many standard rabbinical claims about verses that they believe allude to the oral Torah or the Talmud, or at the very least need an oral accompaniment that explains the verse. In the context of the entire Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures, however, one will find that these verses do not make reference to the oral law, nor do they cry out for an oral law for their understanding. This is the all-truth. Here is one question that is often presented, or a claim. We are told to slaughter animals as God commanded, yet nowhere in the entire Tanakh does God tell us how to slaughter the animals. This is probably, without a doubt, the most common claim by Rabbinites, Orthodox Jews, against Karaites who follow the written scriptures alone. Here is the response. To attempt to prove the existence of the oral law, the students of the Talmud often quote Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 21, which states, "Then you shall kill of your herd and your flock which Yehovah has given you, as I have commanded you." The rabbis claim that the phrase, "as I have commanded you," is proof that there was more than just the written Torah. And this is a great statement. This is a great question. And it is a great claim. It's not nonsense. It's a good claim. And it refers to the parts of the oral law which explain the proper methods for slaughtering an animal. Indeed, there are many requirements laid down in the Talmud as to how to properly slaughter an animal. However, these are the customs of those writing the Talmud rather than the laws of God. The most misleading aspect of the claim that this passage refers to the alleged oral Torah is that it ignores the context of the passage. Not more than 5 verses earlier, we see that the Torah itself dictates how we are to slaughter animals. It says there, "Only you shall not eat the blood. You shall pour it upon the earth like water." So that is the focus of the slaughtering, not the method. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 16. That's where it says that. From this we learn that to properly slaughter the animal, we must do it in the manner that pours its blood on the ground, as opposed to letting it harden in the veins of the slaughtered animal. By strangulation, basically. This reading is confirmed by the lines directly succeeding the verse in question. This is in Deuteronomy 12, verse 23. "Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life, and you may not eat of the life with the meat." In fact, this verse states that the only requirement of slaughter is that we do not eat the blood. That's the point. Here's another claim that's often thrown. There are in fact places where the word Torah is used in its plural form, Torot. Now this word, and when this comes up, the Rabbinical Jews will say this is proof that there were more than one Torah. There was 2 Torahs, which they claim is the oral Torah, which in all senses end up being the Mishnah, the Talmud. What is the response to this? While the word Torah does appear in its plural form throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, the term Torah, in the sense of the collective body of laws given by God, is only used in the singular. Compare the following verses to see the difference between the use of the word in the sense of a specific commandment versus its use in the sense of a collection of divine laws. Let's take a look. Here's type 1. The word Torah is used in the singular to refer to the Torah, the collective instruction of God, and Moshe wrote this law, Torah, and delivered it unto the priests, sons of Levi. That's the singular, Torah. Here the word Torah, which is translated as law or instructions, refers to the complete works that God commanded Moses to write down. The term Torah is never used in the plural when found in type 1 like we talked about. For more verses of this type, we're going to see this more in videos to come. I'm going to make more videos about this. Here's type 2. The singular of Torah is used in the sense of a specific commandment, not referring to the Torah as a whole. And this is the instruction, Torah, of the Nazir. This is one instruction for the Nazir. Okay? On the day of fulfillment of his days of consecration, he shall be brought to the opening of the tent of meeting. You find this in Numbers chapter 6, verse 13. Even though the word Torah is used in the singular, it does not refer to the collective instruction of God here. So we have to understand the context and what we're dealing with, the text of the Torah. Okay? It does not refer to the Torah with a capital T as the whole Torah as a whole. Okay, type 3. The plural of Torah, here is the plural, is used in the meaning other than that relating to the Torah as a whole. Let me give you some examples. These are the statutes, Torot, and ordinances and teachings, Vehatorot, that Yahweh gave between himself and the children of Israel on Mount Sinai by the hand of Moshe. You find this in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 46. Here the word Torah is used in its plural form, Torot. However, this Torah is qualitatively different from the Torah in the previous examples I gave you in type 1 and type 2. It does not refer to the Torah with a capital T as a whole. That this verse uses the word Torah to mean general instructions or teaching contained in the Torah itself is the only logical contextual interpretation, if you're at all rational. All verses that refer to the plural of the Torah are of this type of statutes, ordinance, and laws, separations, not the whole divine Torah. That's the point. You see this type in Exodus chapter 18, verse 20, and Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 13 as well. Claim number 3. In the book of Daniel, we see that Daniel prayed 3 times a day facing Jerusalem. Now again, a Talmudic Jew will say, well, we pray 3 times a day. Here's proof of the oral Torah. In response to this, what will we say? Daniel chapter 6, verse 11 says, Now he had windows open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, and he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before Elohim. A common claim of students of the Rabbinical movement is that since the Torah does not tell us to pray towards Jerusalem or how many times a day we should pray, these things could have only been learned by the oral Torah. That's the claim. This claim illustrates the significant difference between Karaites and Rabbinics. Karaites believe in every word of the Tanakh as a whole. So therefore, we're going to search the scriptures to find out if this is in fact factual or not. There is a good reason why the Karaites therefore use the entire Tanakh to derive religious principles and the meaning of commandments. Let's take a look at an example. We find in the book of Psalms, King David prays 7 times in the book of Psalms. Speaking under divine inspiration, Solomon says that when we are captive in a foreign land and are doing God's work in a foreign land, that we may pray towards Jerusalem so that God will maintain our cause, Solomon declares. This is why all Jews pray towards the temple. There's a reason. It's biblical. Okay? For example, 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 44, if your people go out to battle against their enemy, by whatever way Elohim shall send you, and they pray to Yahweh towards the city, that's why Jews pray towards the city you have chosen, and toward the house that you have built for your name, then hear you in heaven their prayers and their supplication and maintain their cause. Here it is, Psalms 138, verse 2. I will bow down towards your holy temple. Okay? Like I said before, King David prayed 7 times right here in Psalms 119, verse 164. 7 times he mentions. So there's no limit to how many times you can pray. We search the entire scriptures to get the conclusion of things. And that's why study of Tanakh, deep study of the entire Tanakh, will get you understanding that no, it does not verify the oral law. It verifies that the Karaites are following and studying Tanakh very carefully. Finally, the book of Daniel illustrates one more point worth noting. When praying, Daniel fully prostrated, meaning he bowed to the floor, which is different. He prayed on his knees. In biblical times, full prostration was virtually synonymous with prayer. You can find this in Psalms 95 verse 6, Psalms 138 verse 2. In the Eastern lands up until the late medieval period, even the Rabbinites themselves prayed in full prostration. In modern times, in many Orthodox Rabbinite congregations, the entire congregation will fully prostrate on Yom Kippur. To this day, Karaites fully prostrate in all of their prayers. So this is something not unknown. This is something known, and it should be brought back in full force on both sides. This is just a handful. I'm going to be making a lot more videos on these topics, and I hope you enjoyed. Shalom, everyone. More to come.